Hello, welcome back to my channel. This video is a continuation of the bad mornings for family caregivers. The bad mornings can last a week, a month, or longer. I will update you a little bit about my current situation with my father. Um, this also applies to other family caregivers and the problems we face that can spring up on us out of nowhere. Now, my father is almost 90. He has Alzheimer's and dementia, vascular dementia. I tell you, I found him on the floor last week on Tuesday morning. He was laying on the floor. He had slid down there and couldn't get up. He'd only gone to bed about 6.5 hours before. So the night before he was fine, and then suddenly he's not fine and can't stand on his own. So we got him to the hospital, VA hospital, and they did all the tests in the world. They couldn't find anything wrong. I'm sure there were a few tests they could have done, which I'm thinking about now. But nothing was coming back as wrong. He didn't have a UTI, urinary tract infection. He didn't have COVID. He didn't have a cold or a virus. In the end, they pretty much determined that the problem was dehydration. And that threw me off because I thought my dad was drinking enough fluids. I'm starting to think that diagnosis might even be wrong about the dehydration because of what they've done with him and to him this week. I think they might not even understand or can figure out what is wrong with him, why he's so weak in the legs. I'm thinking now maybe it's a period of too long sitting on the couch for too long on Friday. I'm sorry, on Tuesday or Monday night. All these days are running together for me. But I think he might have stayed binge watching a show too long on Monday night. And he'd done that on the Sunday night too, so maybe it's this period of inactivity. It may have caused some pressure or some pinching down on his nerves in his back. And maybe that's why he can't stand up. I'm going to talk to them about that tomorrow. But anyway, I finally, after waiting most of the week, on Friday about noon, I get a call. The call I was waiting on, saying they're going to be sending him home, releasing him, either that night Friday, or Saturday at the outside Sunday. But I got the call, and I waited all Friday night. No one called me. So I waited all Saturday morning. No one called me. So I decided to go to the hospital and visit my dad. I was going to visit him Friday, but I thought they were going to release him. So I get there, and the nurse tells me, now he has pneumonia. Pneumonia? Where did that come from? He was fine yesterday. No, apparently not. Pneumonia. And they had him on a bunch of medications for pneumonia. So I'm just blindsided me. But I went home and waited. I thought I'd have to wait till Tuesday or Wednesday before we're going to bring him home. Even though I was going to go visit him again. But on Sunday morning, I got a call about 9 o'clock in the morning from the doctor in charge at that time, saying that they were releasing my father at noon. I said, huh? Wait, he has pneumonia. No, she said, he doesn't. It turns out he just has a viral infection, something like a cold. He didn't look that way to me when I visited him. But I went anyway, and I said, okay, I'll come get him, and I went to pick him up. And it turned into a complete fiasco. It was terrifying, scary, and maddening. When I got there, my father was sitting on the edge of his bed, fully dressed, ready to go. But I could tell there was something not 100% with him. There was something not, he looked a bit too frail. His eyes looked a certain way, and he wasn't really focusing or as attentive as he used to be, or normally is. But I said, okay, maybe this is just coming off the being sick, being on those medications. So while we're waiting for the paperwork to be finalized, Dad says he has to go to the bathroom. So the male nurse, puts the walker by the bed. Dad gets up, and then the nurse assists him getting into the bathroom to go number 2. And Dad was in there for a long time. And finally, the nurse asked him if he needs help. And it turns out he needed help wiping himself because he was having difficulty doing that. And that was never a problem with my dad. He never had ever complained about that issue. So that's adding on to the already growing list of things that are concerning me about this release. So anyway, they do that, and then my dad gets up, and the nurse is helping him navigate out of the bathroom, and then my dad's legs start shaking and trembling, and then his legs gave out. The nurse grabbed him and tried to hold him up, but he couldn't, and Dad's legs totally went out, and he went all the way to the floor. Other nurses had to come in and help him. They all got around and eventually got him up into a wheelchair. Which was very hard on me watching that, let me tell you. But the discussions began at that point with the nursing staff. And I said in no uncertain terms, there is no way I can take my father home if he's going to require a wheelchair, because we don't have a wheelchair at home. There's no way I can get him from the car into our apartment with a rolling walker. We don't have a wheelchair. Plus, the physical rehabilitation department told me they were not going to be sending him home, and I agreed wholeheartedly until Dad was able to at least walk by himself with a walker. He's strong enough and stable enough. Now, the physical rehabilitation people, they've been working with him, apparently, and they said he was ready to go. But they signed that off on Friday before my dad had a temperature of over 101, and they classified him as having, or diagnosed him, or misdiagnosed him as having pneumonia. So, they, in the end, elected to readmit my father. And then he's back in the hospital. I mean, he's back in the same room. We never left that room. Thank God that it was very serendipitous that Dad had to go to the bathroom before I got him out of that room, into my car, drove home, and him have an issue with getting into the house, falling to the ground. That would have been a disaster. They told me, the nursing staff told me that he had been in bed, lying there, pretty much lying there. Not getting out of bed, not sitting in chairs or walking around, since Friday night. They had 101 degrees temperature Friday night and a lower one on Saturday night, and they're trying to release him on Sunday morning? That doesn't make any sense to me. But weekend doctors, it's very common that weekend doctors that are scheduled over a weekend start pushing people out on Sunday to get them out of the system. They don't know enough about what's going on. They're just rushing through their business, I think. I've had other family members with the same issue. Suddenly being released too soon on the weekend because the doctors who've been caring for them all week are not on duty. It's a different doctor. So anyway, my dad's still in the hospital. Tomorrow he's gonna have to be reevaluated by other doctors, and then probably reevaluated by the rehabilitation department. Try to figure something out. I'm going to talk to them about what I think might be going on with his back, because it doesn't make any sense that the same trouble that he was having at home when I try to get him to be able to stand up before I send him to the hospital, he's having in that hospital room after a week where I know he's fully hydrated. That's when the nursing staff tells me my father has not been eating enough, in their opinion. It turns out he's barely been eating anything the entire week. Sure, he's fully hydrated, but he's not been eating. He said he has no appetite. Of course, he's not going to have the strength to walk if he's not had enough food in his system. It's crazy. I know they can't force feed him, but there could be a different solution, or they should have recorded that and determined that, what was going on, before they decided to release him suddenly. Another thing I noticed when I walked into the room was the television station. The show on the television was bull riding. Bull riding. Dad has no interest in that. None at all. So, basically, he's been laying in bed for a couple of days, and they've been putting on whatever they want that he has no interest in watching. So of course he's going to lay there and doze off, not watch TV because it will hold no interest for him. I don't, or they're not interacting with him enough to get his brain going. Plus, he's not eating. I tell you, a lot of stress on me over the week hearing already, but then hearing all this suddenly after they tried to release him to home in that condition really bothered me. It's really bothering me, and I'm going to call the geriatric doctor or the primary care doctor that Dad has tomorrow morning and start trying to inform them of what's going on, because what I found out about hospitals is they don't contact the doctor, even if you give them the doctor's name and say all the records are there, we've done all these tests and we see them every month or every couple of months. They don't care about any of that. They think they have to find out themselves from the start point. They don't want to read what other doctors have written about what's ongoing with that patient. They want to come up with it themselves because that stuff may be wrong, they say, may be outdated. We want to come to our own conclusions. So they're not interacting at all. They're not even looking up the patient records from the doctor, and it's all one thing. I mean, the VA is all one organization. And other hospitals do the same thing, even if they're on the same network. They're not looking at the data that has been on input from your other providers, your medical providers. They want to figure it out on their own. Well, apparently they're not figuring it out very well. So that's my week. That's my dad's week. I had hoped he would be home already. And between his inactivity, laying in bed, not eating, and having the same issues with his legs that he had at home, at the hospital, what's really concerning to me is what if this is the beginning of the downward spiral when it all goes bad. It can happen like that. You're doing great. He was fine Monday night. 6.5 hours later, he's on the floor in his bedroom, unable to stand. And that could just have gone past a tipping point. And this week in the hospital, laying mostly in his bed, not eating, not being engaged, even with a television show he wants to watch. Just laying there. Of course he's going to lose his place on the page. Of course he's going to become disoriented, disillusioned. And putting a catheter in him, that's got to be traumatizing on top of everything else, and then keep looking down and not know what that thing is. I think we all go through dealing with this kind of thing, or seeing this kind of thing with our family. And it's heartbreaking, and it's very hard. And it's especially hard when you see people doing things, people who should be fully invested, like a hospital or a doctor, and they don't seem to be doing anything. I mean, there isn't anything they can do. But trying to just push them out of the system back home, I have a problem with that. That should never happen. They should have started reevaluating my father after he has got 101 fever has been sick for days, and he misdiagnosed that as pneumonia. When I said that to the doctor, when she called me to come get him, I said, "Oh, but he's got pneumonia." "No, he doesn't." Said it like that, sort of sarcastically. Like somebody else made a mistake. That really wasn't what was going on. If I'm getting that attitude from them, they don't have any dedication. They're not going to have any dedication to my father. They're not going to be treating him with respect like a person. They're not going to be concerned over him. They just want to push him out. And I'm going to have something to say to people tomorrow on that one. Anyway, it's been a long week. It's going to be a longer week, I think, next week. But we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep you updated. But I want to tell everyone out there, even if you're a family caregiver, or you just have a family member that's been put into the hospital for some reason, do not expect them to be on the same page as you and your doctors and the system that they're already in and should already have all the available data there. The hospital, the ER, and once the doctors at the hospital, they're not paying attention. They want to find it on their own. They can't trust old data. Anyway, I'll talk to you folks later. Have a good day, and I'll see you again soon.